Joining us now at CPAC is Grover Norquist. He's of course known because he's president of the Americans for Tax Reform. Good to have you here, Grover. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to be with you.
You know, this week we saw something pretty amazing in that Lois Lerner came back to Capitol Hill, and they tried to ask her some very specific questions about what was going on with the IRS and the probing of conservative groups around the country. And she again took the fifth. But Darrell Issa has produced for the public a lot of documents that certainly raise some very interesting questions about what Lois Lerner knew and what Lois Lerner was up to. As we look at the events of that hearing, what are your thoughts about it?
Well, there's been a history of this. I served on the Commission on Restructuring the IRS, a congressional commission back in the 90s that was put there because, remember, that's when you found IRS agents were looking up their neighbors' tax returns and celebrities' tax returns. And I asked the head of the IRS then, I made the point as a commissioner, I said, look, my friends on the center-right groups are being audited. I've talked to folks on the left. None of their groups are being audited. What are you guys doing? Oh, we have a very fair system. Could you describe it? No, it's a secret. And that's when Senator Bob Kerrey, Democrat of Nebraska, said, I think we really exhausted this question. Darrell Issa is not shutting down the conversation, and it's one that we should have had a long time ago when the Kennedy and Johnson administrations did this, when Nixon tried to do it, and what's going on now has got to stop. They got to quit lying about it.
All right, Grover, so based on what you have seen thus far in this documentary evidence, and based on what has occurred and what's in the public record, what is your theory about what was going on there?
Well, I think the president was very wise, because if you look at those areas that had Tea Party, it's a wonderful study done by a series of academics. If you look at those towns and cities that had Tea Party rallies and compare them with groups that were going to have rallies but they got rained out, it created several million more Republican voters in 2010, more volunteers, and more money raised. So just the act of getting together in a rally and meeting other people gets people jazzed up and active. A community organizer, as the president was, knows how dangerous that is.
Right.
So those groups, which started with a bunch of people getting together and one guy renting a microphone, could have turned into, if they'd had 501c4 legal status, a group with a bank account, and then everybody could kick in $50 and you could feel comfortable raising, I mean, not millions of dollars, but thousands of dollars to keep it going. That's what was slowed down and why the 12 election was not as successful as 10.
Grover Norquist, you're also on
this was a smart move.
You're on the
by
board.
The Dems.
You're on the board here for CPAC. You're an American Conservative Union, and so you're part of sort of the planning process for this event.
Yes.
We've been hearing from a lot of guests here that, listen, every time we talk about Benghazi on the air, our phone lines light up. You know that people still feel like something happened there that night, and the Republicans have not been able to get to the bottom of it. And they're surprised that there isn't enough conversation here at CPAC this year about terrorism, about Al-Qaeda. How do you respond to that? There really isn't as much of a discussion here, and that is an important part of the conservative message, isn't it?
Well, one always has that every year at CPAC. Somebody feels that their favorite issue doesn't get as much attention as they'd like. And there are two answers to it.
But this is more than a favorite issue. I mean, this is something that conservatives and Republicans have been, this is a winning issue politically.
None of the issues that people have raised in the past and said, how come there isn't more on mine, are unimportant issues. But the answer to that is, one, we have about 30 standalone speeches by congressmen, senators, political leaders, writers, and pundits. And if they're not covering something sufficiently, then the people pushing an issue have a problem. They haven't done their job.
In other words, Ted Cruz could have made his whole speech about Al-Qaeda for all you care, or whatever.
Or Benghazi, or whatever the issue is. I've heard the same complaint about immigration, where often ATR's had CPAC has had panels and so on. And this time there's one panel, and somebody said, why didn't they do bunches? I said, well, there are 40 speakers, any one of whom could have made this a third of their talk, a tenth of their talk, or whatever. I understand. I think all the panels should be on taxes.
Yeah.
And there are no panels on taxes, but there's speakers, all of whom talk about taxes. So groups that try and raise a political issue need to do their job rather than whine that somebody else isn't doing their job. Whining is not working.
And it's not a conservative value.
No, it's not.
All right, I got a little bone to pick, because I know you maybe have a little influence in this area.
Okay.
I think this is marvelous. I love CPAC. I think this is a great place for conservatives to come and compare notes and to talk about the issues that really matter. But there is a sideshow aspect to it. The guy.
Here you go.
The guy who.
Right on cue.
As if on cue. The guy who comes by here in the colonial outfit.
Just like he's in Valley Forge. Yeah.
That's right. Then yesterday there were the Wookiees walking. I'm not making this up.
And stormtroopers.
Yeah. And there were stormtroopers.
Star Wars stormtroopers.
And then there was a guy a moment ago on stilts. And all that's good and fun, I suppose. But what happens is those who do not like what is going on here will take that picture, and that will be on the front page of the newspaper, and it makes it look like a bunch of wacko birds.
I couldn't agree with you more. I argued for Vegas showgirls, and I got voted down.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I would be in favor of that, of course.
I thought we had a real shot. You go to the auto shows, they have the beautiful women on the cars.
No, but
Here, nothing.
I'm serious about this. I mean, why do you allow that?
Well, first of all, one of the ones with the Star Wars guys, that's actually PR for How Money Walks, which is a great booth downstairs.
You know what? I understand what they're doing. It's promotional, and they're trying to make a point. It's a trap, is the line there. But that's not what will happen. You know, image and perception is everything. And if the pictures that people see on newspapers around the country is the guy dressed up like a colonial soldier, it just diminishes what happens here.
It makes it sound like a Star Trek convention, and it's not. And you're quite right. And I'm not quite sure what the answer to that is, but I will make sure at the next board meeting it is discussed to see what might happen.
Well, you let them know that Larry thinks that it's actually, I think it's kind of cool, and I think it's good that we don't have the image of being a bunch of boring guys in blue suits and red ties.
And I'll keep out there with the showgirls option.
Listen, obviously we're laughing at you because you're a funny guy. You won DC's Funniest here at the DC Improv last year.
That was fun, yeah.
I understand you're taking your show on the road. Are you really taking your stand-up comic act to L.A., to the world-renowned Comedy Store?
Pauly Shore, the comedian actor, has promised me 6 minutes on stage, 6-minute gig at the LA Comedy Store this year. I'm getting prepared and finding a time to go out to LA. See if I can get discovered.
Grover, are you quitting your day job?
No.
Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform, and also a board member here at American Conservative Union for CPAC.
Really appreciate you coming by, Grover. Always a pleasure.
Enjoyed the opportunity.